Atalanta. With all assembled to begin the hunt, one final member would choose to join, but they would be unlike the rest, for Atalanta, a woman, had come to claim the boar as a prize. Born to a king wishing for a son, as a baby Atalanta had been left in the wilderness to die, yet she would be nursed and protected by a bear, surviving long enough until she was found and raised by a pair of hunters. Growing up in the wild, Atalanta would learn to hunt, soon becoming a devoted follower of the goddess Artemis. By the time she became an adult, Atalanta was one of the greatest archers in the land, able to fight, run, and shoot better than almost any man. After hearing of the expedition gathering to slay the Calydonian boar, Atalanta would be keen to join, wishing to win the glory and prove her worth as a hunter. But upon her arrival to the gathering, she was greeted by mockery and contempt, with every warrior bursting out in uncontrollable laughter at the very thought of a woman wishing to hunt. Only one remained silent, for Meleager, after setting his eyes upon her, had fallen deeply in love with Atalanta, and would argue with his companions until they finally agreed to let her join. With all now prepared, the hunt could finally begin. Setting out into the countryside, the party would have an easy time tracking the boar, as it left an unmistakable trail of destruction and carnage in its wake. Soon, finding the boar stampeding through the woods, the hunters would quickly surround it, but just as they went to strike, the beast would rush forward, impaling one man on its tusks before trampling another beneath its heavy hooves. Panicking, the men would begin to attack the creature, but this would only add to the chaos, with one man being killed when a stray javelin impaled his chest. Amidst the madness, only one would keep a level head, with Atalanta raising her bow and letting fly an iron-tipped arrow, striking the boar in the throat. The beast would squeal out in pain, with Meleager taking the opportunity to rush forward with his spear, finishing off the beast with a strike through the heart. With the boar defeated, a great cheer would erupt amongst the hunters, all praising Meleager for delivering the killing blow. But Meleager would refuse to take credit, instead insisting that Atalanta take the boar's hide as a prize, as she had delivered the first blow. The suggestion would cause outrage amongst the hunters, with Meleager's uncles, Toxus and Plexippus, stepping forward to voice their disgust at the thought of a woman taking home the prize, instead insisting that if Meleager did not want it, then the boar's hide should belong to them. Enraged by the comments and blinded by his love for Atalanta, Meleager drew his sword and would strike down both of his uncles where they stood. Shocked at the bloodshed, the hunters would begin their return to Calydon, with word soon reaching Meleager's mother, Queen Althea, that her two brothers had died at the hands of her son. In a moment of grief and anger, Queen Althea would rush to collect the chest that contained the large log she had hidden all those years ago. Throwing it into the fire, she would watch on with tears in her eyes as the log that kept her son alive was consumed by the flames. Instantly, Meleager would begin to scream, twisting in agony and falling to the floor, with him taking his last and final breath as the log was reduced to ash. Realizing what she had done, Queen Althea would try desperately to remove the log from the fire, but it was too late, for the log was no more, with her taking her own life in the grief of knowing she had killed her own son. With the Calydonian Boar Hunt having ended in tragedy, the heroes would begin to disperse, yet for Atalanta, more adventure lay ahead. The foot race of Atalanta. After her role in slaying the Calydonian boar, Atalanta's name would become known across Greece, with suitors from far and wide coming to try and claim her hand in marriage. But Atalanta, wanting to continue her life of adventure, would come up with an easy way of rejecting them all, declaring that she would only marry the man who could beat her in a foot race. Suitor after suitor would try to win, but all would fail, with Atalanta knowing that there was no man alive who could match her. But one day, she would be challenged by a suitor who was different from the rest, a young man named Hippomenes, who knew full well that he had no chance of beating her. Instead, he had visited the temple of Aphrodite the night before to pray for assistance, with the goddess gifting him 3 golden apples in return, so beautiful that no mortal could resist the urge to take them. And so, when the race began and Atalanta quickly took the lead, Hippomenes would take an apple and throw it onto the ground before them. Enchanted by the sight of it, Atalanta would come to a halt, reaching down to pick the apple up. But she would soon resume the race, with Hippomenes forced to throw yet another apple to slow Atalanta down. With the finish line in sight and Hippomenes barely managing to keep a lead, he was forced to throw the third and final apple, this time throwing it far across the track, forcing Atalanta to veer off the path in pursuit. With his plan having worked, Hippomenes would achieve what no man had done before, finally beating Atalanta and claiming her hand in marriage. The two would wed and have a son, with Atalanta falling in love with her new husband. But Hippomenes, in his excitement over winning the race, had forgotten to offer sacrifice to thank Aphrodite for providing him with the golden apples. In revenge, Aphrodite would make Atalanta and Hippomenes lay together in a sacred temple of Zeus, with the king of the gods punishing the couple by transforming them into lions. As the ancient Greeks believed that male and female lions could not mate, and that lion tubs came exclusively from the union of lions and leopards, the couple would be forever doomed to wander the earth, always together but unable to ever share the joys of intimacy again. With the Calydonian Boar Hunt having come to an end, a new generation of heroes would now rise. But for Zeus, he thought too many demigods still roamed the earth, and believed that there should be a greater distinction between gods and mortals. And so he would set in motion a series of events that would lead to war, the greatest war the world had ever seen, that would finally, once and for all, rid the earth of his many descendants. The Trojan War. Across the sea from the great cities of Greece reigned the most powerful kingdom of them all, Troy, whose famous walls were said to be indestructible, having been built by the gods themselves. The city was ruled by King Priam and Queen Hecuba, who were deeply loved and respected by their people, with Priam having 50 sons and 50 daughters during his reign. The most admired of them would be Prince Hector, Troy's greatest warrior. The eldest son of Priam, Hector was a brave and honorable warrior. Devoted to his homeland and committed to his family, Hector loved none more than his wife Andromache and his son Astyanax, who he would sacrifice anything to protect. The sister of Hector, Cassandra, would be the least fortunate of Priam's children. She would once catch the eye of the god Apollo, who would give her the gift of prophecy in his attempts to seduce her. But when she rejected the god, he would curse Cassandra in a jealous rage, making it so none would ever believe her prophecies. Finally, there would be Paris, the brother of Hector and Cassandra, who would be raised away from his family. Before his birth, Hecuba received a prophecy revealing that her unborn son was destined to bring destruction to Troy. But unable to kill the child herself, she instructed a local shepherd to complete the task. But just like Hecuba, the shepherd could not harm the helpless infant and instead would raise Paris in secret, a decision that would change the course of history.